Good afternoon, good evening, everybody. It's David Schlotthauer here in the home weather office for New Year's Eve 2023. In today's weather discussion, we have two big snowstorms that we're tracking for the Midwest and the Northeast. We can be looking at blizzard conditions, severe weather, and some strong winds. So the first portion of this video, we're going to be focusing on New Year's Eve and New Year's Day, because a lot of you are probably wondering what the weather is going to be like for my area. Are you going to be able to get out tonight and watch the fireworks and celebrate New Year's Eve and Day? Well, let's take a look here at the HRRR model, which is a high-resolution rapid refresh model that I always like using. And so by about 7 p.m. tonight over Indiana and portions of the Great Lakes, there is going to be some snow and some rainfall. More of a wet snow, but still some precipitation, a lot of cloud cover. It's not going to be the best to go out there and do anything unless you are across Times Square, New York, where you're going to see quite a bit of dry weather, which is nice. Everyone wants dry weather on New Year's Eve. And then, of course, down here across Florida for tonight looks pretty good. For southern Texas, looks pretty good too. And California, other than maybe a few blips on the radar, looking also pretty well, other than some low clouds and some fog that might make things a little interesting. So now, when 2024 does start over Pennsylvania and portions of Pennsylvania and Ohio, you're looking at some snow, and some of it could be a little heavy at times, leading to, again, some interesting complications out there. Fireworks, probably not going to be the case unless they are snowproof. I don't think there's such thing as snowproof fireworks, but you get the idea. Some inclement weather there for the Great Lakes, but otherwise many areas going to be enjoying some nice New Year's Eve fireworks out there. By about midnight for Pacific time, looks pretty good. Just some cloud cover, and that's really about it. But otherwise, much of the nation looking pretty good for tonight's fireworks New Year's Eve spectacular. Now, to ring off 2024 on the first day of the year, we are looking at pretty good conditions, other than some clouds from time to time across much of the Midwest, some clear skies further south. We do have a little bit of shower activity with that, reminiscent of that system that is kind of impacting the Great Lakes now, going to be impacting portions of Maryland and possibly Delaware, but again, nothing too extreme, nothing big compared to with what you all are about to deal with potentially for next week. Not this week, but the following week. Beyond the 8th and the 9th of January looks very, very, very menacing by a lot of means in meteorology. And then, of course, down here across the desert Southwest, maybe a little clipper system, which will get us into a very active pattern. So now, with New Year's Day and New Year's Eve forecast out of the way, let's get going and talking about what the next pattern will hold against us for this upcoming week into the following week, because I'm telling you folks, it is looking very, very active. I'm telling you, it's been all calm and quiet, right? Not many snowstorms, very, very far below average in terms of snowfall coverage in the northern tier of the United States, but I'm sure we're going to make things up very quickly after you watch this video, because there is a lot of snow coming. So first of all, this is the Euro model for January the 2nd, and of course we have our shortwave disturbance here that is not going to do much other than bring quite a bit of rainfall for the deep south and the southeast. Not much cold air to tap into, since a lot of our colder air is in Canada still, actually in northern Canada. It's really this disturbance over here in the west. See this right in here? That's going to be the game changer, what we call the game changer, or the system that will change our weather for a while. So going forward in time, that impacts California, right, bringing mountain snowfall down to about 4,500 feet. So low snow levels with this one, cooler system, and of course valley rain in many areas. And that's going to roll into the desert Southwest by Thursday. But it's once this system gets into the Midwest when things are going to be very different. Okay, let's go and roll that through. First of all, snow is not a big problem right away with this one. The deep south going to get another round of heavy rainfall, maybe some severe weather with this one. And this is again for Friday into Saturday. So a lot of people are traveling back from their parents' house. If you guys are in the east and visited from California, well, you have to take off out of eastern Texas and fly back home here. And right now, while there is a little bit of uncertainty, we do know what system is going to develop here according to the Euro model. And then going forward, this system really blows up potentially into the eastern half of the U.S. as it encounters more tighter pressure gradients as well as temperature gradients. So we get colder air coming in out of the north with this system. And you can tell here by where the colder air is on this map by the freezing line at around 500 millibars or 1,000 to 500 millibar average freezing line. And so we can see where the colder, where the snow is coming down over central Indiana. By the way, this one could be a doozer for Indianapolis standards, Kokomo, that area, even Toledo, Ohio, maybe even Columbus. Definitely want to be on the lookout as we get future model runs in to our office here. And then going forward, big snowstorm, major by all means here, very dynamic system, not particularly deep by any chance or by any means. We're not seeing a 965, 970 millibar system, but we're seeing a really tight gradient between the ridge up here to the north and this low down here to the south. And so that's going to lead to a lot of snow this weekend. And I'm telling you, beyond the 7th or so, maybe the 6th or perhaps then and beyond, we're going to be in a whole different ball game here with our weather pattern. Now, as that system is impacting the Northeast, there's another one behind it, moving into the desert Southwest, the Four Corners, Utah, Colorado, Arizona, and New Mexico. This is a very deep trough. This goes way far southward in on the Euro model and brings a lot more colder air with it. So this first system is like your appetizer, and this system right over here is the big one. This is the one that could get a lot of people's attention. Wait until you see this. This is out to January the 7th. This is January the 8th in the afternoon hours. Look at this system. Look how intense that snowfall is. Very tight pressure gradient. Keep in mind, 993 millibars here, 1,033 millibar high at the surface. At the Arctic high is going to be in place. So we have a very tight gradient between these two air masses, and that's going to unveil a lot of cold air, some strong winds, maybe some power outages with this system, and yeah, maybe some severe weather too on the southern side of this, the warm sector, well, along this cold front as it sweeps through. So yeah, we may have everything with this system because it's so dynamic. Now, by the morning hours of Tuesday, January the 9th, yeah, this is a massive system by all means, going to potentially, now I don't want to overdo myself here because there's a lot of uncertainty in the models this far out, but if this pans out, this could be historic. We are talking about a blizzard because of how strong the winds are. We're talking about very intense snowfall, of course, snowfall rates up and over 6 inches an hour, and we could be talking about some severe weather down across the southeast and the deep south if we get enough warm air advection and enough moisture to be transported northward with dew points that could be able to lift maybe low to mid 60 dew points down here. We could be seeing a good severe weather outbreak. And then this continues all the way into the Northeast, boy. This is at the very end of the model run. January the 10th on Wednesday, we could be looking at a big snowstorm again. The second one nearly in a week or so at this point in time. And so my long story short, the weather pattern is changing. We're talking big snowstorms and mighty cold air in the wake of these Arctic systems. So what's going to make these systems so explosively deep and impactful? Well, when we take a look at our cyclonic relative vorticity at 500 millibars, this gives us an idea on what the atmosphere is doing above the surface. And so when we look at this, here's our first disturbance moving into California, right? And here's, and if we go forward in time, we can see how this all evolves. It goes into the high plains by Friday, and take note here of how sharp this trough is. A lot of baroclinic ascent out ahead of this. So a lot of forcing coming into play here. Moisture being lifted northward by this trough. And there's a lot of cold air going to try to come in right behind this. And this is going to exacerbate the snowfall, especially once we do get some cooler air digging southward as this trough deepens. We can see that here, this baroclinic energy associated with this 500 millibar trough in place. Then another system tries to nosedive down behind that, and this one looks a lot more dynamic, as you can see. Look at this kind of cinnamon roll look to it. A lot of vorticity on this one. This one is the big guy, I'm thinking, on most of the model guidance that we have. That one could be the most impactful system of the bunch, potentially by the 8th through the 10th of January. So what I like to do here is compare two different models. We looked at the Euro. Now let's look at the GFS, or the US GFS model, or the American model. And again, similar outcomes here with these two models in today's forecast package. As we go into Thursday, of course, there's our system there. The system that hits California on Tuesday and a Wednesday moves into the desert southwest. So again, more mountain snowfall for the higher elevations. But once this system moves into the Midwest, it really gets more dynamic. We have heavy rainfall for Louisiana, for Mississippi, for Arkansas, then eventually into Georgia and Alabama. Again, this one is the one that could either produce way too much rainfall or way too much snowfall, depending on how much colder air is able to filtrate down out of the north and how much warmer air advection is able to sputter around into that colder sector of the system to trigger a lot of the snowfall. And eventually this could bring a lot of snow for Pennsylvania, for New York. Some of the dark blue colors there illustrate snowfall rates up and over 6 to even 8 inches an hour. That will lead to blizzard conditions, certainly with strong winds. And then, of course, that moves out of the picture by Monday, only followed by even a stronger system that the GFS model is even picking up. Only a little bit further north here than the Euro, with the snow now mainly over Nebraska and most of Iowa and northern Missouri, versus the Euro had more snowfall coverage down here in Missouri and also for Kansas. But either way, it's kind of a similar scenario here with this system being very powerful. Look at that, 988 millibars. That is going to do a lot. That's going to bring a tight pressure gradient, and that's going to lead to, again, blowing snow, blizzard conditions, and then eventually the cold air in the wake of this is going to be insanity. Promise me. Let me show you the temperature anomalies here after we get through our snowfall totals. Now, when we take a look at our snowfall totals, I'm going to be as detailed as I can with this portion of the video because I want to make sure everyone's really listening, because while there is a lot of snow that you're about to see here, there's also a little bit of uncertainty, and we cannot make an actual forecast like, okay, you guys are going to see 3 or 4 feet of snow, which, yes, some of the models are already spitting out numbers like that. That does not mean it's going to happen because there is that uncertainty. So this could trend down or trend up even more. But if it happens, yeah, wait until you see this. So the first storm system, right, impacts the Northeast. That's the big one. That's going to bring a lot of snow. Maybe 1 to 2 feet of snow potentially for the higher elevations. For the valleys, maybe 6 to 12 inches. So a fairly impactful system. And yes, that is downtown New York right there that could get impacted. But it's the second one. Check this out. If the Euro comes true with this will be historic. Okay, I'm saying will because if the trends continue, this would end up being an historic snowstorm, even worse potentially than Winter Storm Elliott that we had around Christmas of last year. Yeah, we're in the books of that, folks, on this. So the Euro, again, the more generous model, I should say, if you want to call it generous, it doesn't like hyping up things very much. We all know that, right? This wants potentially up to 50 inches of snowfall in central and northern Kansas, even for portions here of New York like Lake Erie, Lake Ontario. My gosh, this could be very significant. Erie, Pennsylvania could get a couple of feet, maybe even 3 feet of snow, combining the two storms together. according to the Euro deterministic forecast. But when we look at the GFS now, the US model, it is further north. You can see the difference here with that snow track, with that second system impacting more here, with the first system a little bit more further south. And you can see the difference here, maybe a little further south if you're in downtown New York, as well as Nantucket, that area. But the big picture here is we could be facing 2 massive snowstorms, folks, and it's been a while. You haven't had hardly any snow this year. Well, this will definitely surprise you guys by a lot. Now, what about the ensemble forecast? This is from the Euro, the ECMWF ensemble. Okay, and there's 51 members that run the deterministic and run this ensemble in itself. And this is an average weighted mean. This is, so it's going to, of course, be lower than the deterministic forecast. But this is a pretty good signal, okay, from 2 of the snowstorms in the next 10 days, potentially as much as 6 to 12 inches of snowfall for the Northeast, which, again, doesn't seem like a whole lot. And, you know, because we're so far out, these numbers are not going to be very high yet, because some ensemble members show very little. Some ensemble members are going way ballistic, right? And we kind of average things out, and this is what you get. Over the high plains in the Midwest, like Missouri, St. Louis area, Chicago, if you're across Indianapolis, if you're in Kokomo, as well as further north than that, you might see as much as 6 to 8 inches of snowfall at this given time. Now, if we look back at the Euro from last night's run, we can definitely tell it's been trending up. You can definitely see. So this is the 12Z yesterday morning, 24 hours ago, 12 hours ago, and now this latest run. And you can see a notable uptrend in recent guidance. And that's why I'm going ahead and we're going to start issuing daily videos on this, since this now remains a big, big threat to a lot of residents, especially in the Northeast. So now looking at the GEFS, the American Ensemble forecast, you can definitely see it's not as bullish as the Euro model, and the GFS in its ensembles have not done the best job, and I don't know why that is. So we'll see if this actually comes to be more verifiable. But right now, in the books of about 5 to 8 inches of snow for the Northeast, same numbers over the Midwest. And over the Rockies and the Intermountain West too, getting a lot of snow out of the upcoming storms over the next 10 days. I did not want to forget about you all there in California, because there is a lot of snow, much more snowfall to come before we do finish our first full week of January. So now let's talk about those temperature anomalies, because yeah, there are massive temperature changes coming. That's what's going to give us the dynamic systems and more snow from areas that have not seen any snow at all so far this winter. And it's been a long, dreadful, brutal snow-free forecast for a while. And this, I'm telling you, you're going to regret this once we get into mid-January and you're like, oh my gosh, we got a lot of snow after all. Wow, that was quick. Yeah, it only takes a couple of systems to change everything up to kind of shake the weather pattern. So temperature anomaly here, the blue and purple shading is below average temperatures. The orange, red, and dark red shading is actually, or kind of the apricot kind of color. I'm just making some of these words up, but are above average. So let's go forward. Let's go into January the 9th and the 10th. Yeah. What do you think, folks? Now you tell me if that's cold or not. Much colder air coming in over the Dakotas. These temperatures could even, in fact, be 30 to 50 degrees below average. Yeah, we're going to probably see some record low temperatures, potentially some monthly record low temperatures. If not, in some extreme cases, there have been some model runs that have indicated potentially all-time record low temperatures, especially over the northernmost portion of Montana and North Dakota, where I think the coldest air is going to settle in. And yeah, some of the numbers from the GFS operational have squeezed out negative 35 to negative 50 degrees below zero, and that would be something else that we have not contended with for a while. So going forward here over Indiana, then eventually into the Northeast, I mean, this pattern is going to go it is just going to crash on down, and that's because of the rapid weakening with the polar vortex, a stratospheric warming event that is going to lead to a highly unstable polar vortex where cold air moves southward where it shouldn't belong, right? It should be in higher latitudes that we're seeing right now, but there's going to be a disturbance, and that's going to lead to these changes. Now, looking at the ensemble forecast from the GEFS, you can see over the next 8 to 10 days, well below average temperatures across the entire United States. So instead of all orange like we had a week ago, it's going to go all blue. Even the Climate Prediction Center is going pretty aggressive with their temperature anomaly forecast, especially over Phoenix and California. Look at these temperature chances of below. 70 to 80% chance that these temperatures will be below average. All the way in Bakersfield, Fresno, if you're in Los Angeles, Tijuana, if you're in say San Diego, Tucson, if you're in Flagstaff, Las Vegas, yeah, you're going to complain about how cold it's about to get because, yeah, there are very likely chances that will occur. And then Spokane in Washington, if you're in Portland, you have a 40 to 50% chance for your temperatures to be below average, actually up here 60% chance to be more specific. And then of course, when you're in the eastern half there for the next 10 days, again, this is probabilistic. We see the changes coming, and I'm sure oranges are about to kind of disappear here fairly quickly in the next 2 updates from the CPC, but it does indicate that temperatures here, the chances of above average are looking a little likely. But again, we're seeing that pattern change beyond this forecast. And then when we go to 8 to 14 day outlook here, you can see warm east, but look at this. The colder air does filter in. We'll see what the CPC does with this in days to come, because I'm very confident we're going to see a huge change in our temperatures eventually, especially in the west and the northern plains is when I think we're going to see the coldest temperatures arrive. It's cold, but also going to be pretty wet for the desert southwest and the California region. So that means low snow levels or lower from with what we had before. But Phoenix, Arizona, part of that El Nino working hard, 50 to 60% chance for above average precipitation. Then of course, for the eastern seaboard and much of the northeast, you're looking at also a likelihood that you could see above average precipitation, and that's going to be the snowstorms that we are looking at. So more snow on the way because of the green colors that you see. Then Jacksonville, a 60% chance. Well, that's going to sum it up for today's U.S. weather forecast for the last day of 2023. I might be going live tonight. I'm not sure. For the New Year's Eve special, I'm still looking into doing that. I do have work at 6:30 in the morning, so I have to be up by like 4:30. So I don't know if I'm going to be able to stay up for New Year's when the ball drops. But unfortunately, that's just how life is sometimes, you know? I'm 28 years old and that's what happens. But you know what's also the good news? I will keep you guys updated here on the YouTube channel with the winter pattern that is coming. Much colder temperatures. We just talked about that. But you can only do that if you do subscribe right now. If you did enjoy today's detailed weather forecast. And also be sure to check out my Discord, Twitter, and my Sacramento weather website. There are all those links in the description below this video. But that's going to sum it up for today's detailed U.S. weather forecast. Thank you all for watching, and I'll be back with you more, maybe or most likely tomorrow evening. Going to be a late release, though.